Ever get that like sinking feeling when your card gets declined, even though you know NW you've got the money?
Ugh, the worst, right?
Yeah, it's like the ultimate buzzkill. Well, that's actually just one of the many headaches that AI is tackling in the world of fraud detection. Today, we're going to be diving deep into a couple of really interesting articles all about how AI is like totally changing the game in this whole landscape. So we're going to be looking at, the good, the bad, and the real world impact this tech is having.
And you know what's crazy? The stakes here are unbelievably high. Like by 2026, credit card fraud alone is predicted to cost a mind-blowing $43 billion.
$43 billion. It's like almost impossible to even imagine.
Yeah, it's massive, and it's only getting bigger as these fraudsters get more and more creative.
It's like a never-ending cat and mouse game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the tools we're using to fight back are getting smarter too.
True.
Like one of the most exciting things happening right now is this new AI-powered fraud detection system from NVIDIA. They're like the rock stars of AI and graphics processing.
Oh yeah, I know them.
And their new system is causing like a major stir in the financial world.
So it combines this like super powerful thing called graph neural networks with like the more traditional algorithms that we've been using. I know it all sounds pretty technical, but basically it means this new system is designed to not only catch fraud more accurately, but also to cut down on those super annoying false positives. You know, the ones I was talking about where your card gets declined for like no reason.
Exactly. False positives are a nightmare. They like really erode people's trust in the system and create a ton of unnecessary friction.
Yeah, it's like you just want to buy your groceries and then bam, decline.
Total buzzkill. But what's exciting about NVIDIA's approach is that they're tackling this problem head on. They're using their expertise in like super fast data processing to spot patterns that might totally slip past the older system.
And it's not just talk. They've got like real world proof to back it up. Like American Express, for example, they've been using AI for fraud detection since like 2010.
Oh yeah, Amex, they were one of the early adopters, and they've been refining their systems ever since. Now they can make fraud decisions in milliseconds.
Wow.
Think about that. You're at the checkout, swiping your card, and before you even put it back in your wallet.
Right.
Amex's AI has already decided whether the transaction is legit. So that means fewer interruptions and a much smoother experience for us shoppers.
It really is mind-blowing how AI is working behind the scenes to keep all our transactions safe. And it's not just limited to credit cards, right?
Oh, definitely not. We're seeing AI being used to fight all sorts of financial fraud. Everything from new account fraud to even money laundering.
Oh, wow.
There's a European digital bank called Bunk, and also the Bank of New York Mellon. They're just two examples of institutions who are using AI to combat these kinds of financial crimes.
So what is it about AI that makes it so uniquely qualified for this job? Like, what can it do that traditional methods just can't?
Well, one of the biggest advantages is that AI can analyze huge amounts of data, and it does it super fast. We're talking about like sifting through mountains of transactions, looking for the tiniest little things that might be a sign of fraud. Humans just can't do that at the same speed or scale.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack, but AI can do it like that.
That's a great way to put it. And the other big advantage is that AI is always learning. Every time it encounters a new case of fraud, it gets better at recognizing similar patterns in the future. So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's about learning from experience and adapting to new threats as they pop up.
It's like having a detective that's always on the case and getting smarter with every crime they solve.
I like that analogy. Now, to really understand how all of this works, it helps to know a bit about the different types of machine learning that are at play here.
Okay, so let's like unpack that a little bit. I know there are like a few different approaches to machine learning, right?
Yeah, so there's supervised learning, where the AI is trained on data that's already been labeled. So basically, it's given examples of both fraudulent and legitimate transactions, and that helps it learn to tell the difference.
So it's kind of like teaching a kid with flashcards, showing them pictures of cats and dogs until they can tell them apart.
Exactly. Then you've got unsupervised learning. That's where the AI is given data that hasn't been labeled.
Okay.
And it has to figure out the patterns all on its own. This one's great for spotting those weird anomalies that might not fit our like preconceived ideas of what fraud looks like.
So it's like the AI is playing detective, looking for clues and connections that we humans might totally miss.
Exactly. And then there's reinforcement learning, where the AI learns by basically trial and error. It gets feedback on its predictions and then constantly refines its approach. This is where things get really interesting because the AI is basically learning to think for itself.
Wow, that's incredible. It's almost like the AI is developing its own intuition about what's fraud and what's not. But let's get into some of the specific techniques AI uses to actually catch these bad guys. I know it's more than just number crunching, right?
You're right. It's about understanding behavior. So
Yeah.
AI uses techniques like clustering, where it groups similar transactions together to see if any stand out as like unusual.
So, like finding the odd one out in a lineup. Can you give me an example of how that might work in the real world?
Sure, imagine AI is looking at all your online purchases, and then suddenly there's a purchase for like a diamond necklace from a new device in a completely different country. That's the odd one out, and the AI would flag it for further investigation.
Makes total sense. So, what other techniques does it use?
Well, there's also classification, which is basically deciding whether a transaction is fishy or not. And then there's regression analysis, which is used to predict the likelihood of fraud. This one helps institutions take action before any damage is actually done.
Wow, that's really impressive. It's like AI is reading between the lines and picking up on these subtle clues that a human would probably miss. But I know AI uses more than just numbers too, right?
You're thinking about neural networks and natural language processing, aren't you?
You know me so well. Tell me more about those.
So neural networks, they basically mimic the way our brains work, allowing the AI to uncover these really complex fraud schemes that might involve like layers and layers of deception.
Oh, wow.
And then there's natural language processing, which analyzes texts from emails, chats, online reviews, all sorts of stuff to sniff out scams or identity theft.
So, like, AI is learning to speak our language, but also learning to decode the language of the fraudsters.
Exactly. By understanding how we communicate both like legitimately and fraudulently, AI can get a much deeper understanding of all the threats out there.
This is all so fascinating, but I also know that it's not all perfect. There are some challenges that come with using AI for fraud detection writing.
Right? It's not a magic solution. One big one is the technical challenge of actually integrating AI into existing systems.
Right.
It can be complex and expensive, and it requires a lot of expertise.
And what about the quality of the data that's being used? I imagine that's pretty crucial for how effective these systems are.
Absolutely. Data quality is everything. If the AI is trained on bad data or biased data, then the results are going to be flawed. So making sure the data is good and reliable is a really critical part of the whole process.
So it sounds like AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's not like a cure-all. It has to be implemented carefully and strategically.
Exactly. It's all about responsible innovation. We need to be aware of the potential downsides and work to minimize them, making sure that AI is used to protect people, not to exploit them.
Very well said. And despite these challenges, it's clear that AI is having a massive impact beyond just the world of finance. Let's explore some of those other areas after a quick break. Before the break, we were talking about how AI is like shaking things up in fraud detection way beyond just finance.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see how it's being used in all these different areas.
Yeah.
Like in e-commerce, for instance, AI is playing a huge role in like cutting down on chargebacks and, stopping those fake orders, which is good for both businesses and shoppers.
Totally. It's a win-win. Businesses get to protect their bottom line, and we get a safer, more reliable online shopping experience.
Exactly. And in the insurance world, AI is being used to spot those bogus claims, which helps keep premiums down for everyone else.
Yeah.
It's all about building trust and making things more transparent.
You know, it's funny. I see AI being used more and more in everyday life, like even those CAPTCHA tests you got to do online to prove you're not a robot.
Oh, yeah.
That's AI in action right there.
Those "I'm not a robot" checks are like a simple but super effective way AI is being used to prevent fraud and abuse online. And as AI gets even smarter, we're going to see even more sophisticated applications popping up everywhere.
So where do you see AI going next in this fight against fraud? Like what new frontiers are going to be conquered?
Well, one of the biggest areas I see AI making a huge impact is in detecting those emerging fraud trends.
Okay.
You see, as fraudsters get more sophisticated, they're always coming up with new ways to exploit the system. It's like a constant arms race.
Oh, for sure.
But at least with AI on our side, we've got a fighting chance.
Yeah.
The cool thing about AI is that it can learn and adapt so much faster than humans can. By looking at tons of data, AI can pick up on those subtle patterns and red flags that might point to a whole new type of fraud.
Wow.
And that means organizations can get ahead of the curve and actually take steps to prevent it before it gets out of control.
So it's not just about reacting to what we already know. It's about proactively finding the new stuff before it becomes a big problem.
Exactly. That's something that old school fraud detection methods just couldn't do. They were too stuck in the past, relying on rules and patterns that were already out of date. AI can think outside the box and find connections that humans might totally overlook.
It's like having a crystal ball that can predict the future of fraud.
Yeah. Well, not quite a crystal ball, but, you know, AI is all about making predictions based on the data it has.
Right.
And as we gather more and more data, those predictions are going to get more and more accurate.
That makes a lot of sense. So if we like zoom out a little bit, what are some of the broader implications of AI for the future of fraud detection? Like, how is this going to change the whole landscape of security?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest changes we're going to see is a shift from being reactive to being proactive when it comes to security.
Okay.
Like traditionally, we've always focused on responding to fraud after it's already happened.
Right.
But with AI, we have a chance to actually stop fraud before it even occurs.
Now, that would be a game changer.
Absolutely. And that shift is going to have a ripple effect throughout the whole security world. Like, for example, I think we're going to see a huge demand for security solutions that are powered by AI. Companies are going to want to invest in the best tech to protect themselves and their customers.
It's like a whole new industry is going to spring up around AI and security.
You got it. And all that's going to lead to even more innovation and development, creating this like cycle of better and better security and more sophisticated technology.
It sounds like we're like right on the edge of a security revolution.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that AI isn't just for those big corporations. You know,
Oh, good point.
small businesses can benefit from this tech too.
Sometimes it feels like AI is only for the big players, but that's not really true, is it?
Nope, not at all. There are lots of AI-powered security solutions out there that are specifically designed for smaller businesses, and they're pretty affordable too. So there's really no reason not to take advantage of what AI can do no matter what size your business is or what industry you're in.
That's awesome to hear. It's making this cutting-edge security accessible to everyone. But, let's talk about the human side of things for a minute. I know some people are worried that AI is going to like take over and replace human jobs in the security field. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a valid concern for sure, and we definitely need to be thinking about it. But I personally don't think AI is going to completely replace humans in this field.
Okay.
I see it more as like AI is going to enhance what we can do and free us up to focus on those higher level tasks that require human judgment and creativity.
So it's more of a partnership than a takeover.
Exactly. AI can handle all that tedious, repetitive stuff like analyzing mountains of data, while humans can focus on the things that need critical thinking and problem-solving skills like, investigating those complex fraud cases or coming up with brand new security strategies.
It's like having a superpowered assistant that can do all the grunt work so we can focus on what we do best.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's a good thing overall. It helps us to be more efficient and more effective at our jobs. But it does mean that we got to adapt and learn new skills to stay ahead of the game.
So it's not just about learning how to use AI, it's about learning how to work alongside it.
Exactly. And that's going to require a change in how we think about things for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We got to embrace the potential of AI and see it as an opportunity, not as a threat.
Very well said. AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It all depends on us. We got to make sure that it's used responsibly and ethically. And speaking of ethics, one area where things get really interesting is in the whole area of data privacy.
Oh, yeah. Data privacy is definitely like a huge thing to think about as AI gets more and more woven into our lives.
Yeah.
It's tricky. There's no easy answer.
Right.
How do we use data to keep things secure but also protect people's privacy?
It's like a constant balancing act.
It is.
And it's something we need to be talking about way more. Like as AI gets more powerful, we need to make sure it's being used ethically and responsibly and that everything's transparent.
Totally agree. Transparency is key. We got to be upfront with people about how their data is being used and give them control over their own information. It's about giving people the power, not taking advantage of them.
It's about recognizing that data isn't just some commodity to be mined. It's connected to real people's lives, their identities.
Exactly. And it's also about making sure that when we design these AI systems, we build in privacy right from the start.
Yeah.
We need those safeguards in place to prevent misuse and make sure sensitive information is treated with care.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but the whole ethical framework around it.
Right.
We got to be asking ourselves the tough questions, like what are the possible consequences? How can we prevent any negative stuff from happening? And how do we make sure AI is used for good?
Those are the million-dollar questions. And it's a discussion everyone needs to be a part of, The developers, the business folks, the policymakers, even everyday people like us.
This deep dive into AI and fraud detection has been seriously eye-opening. We've covered so much. From the crazy potential of AI to the challenges and the ethical stuff that comes with it. As we wrap up, I'm curious to get your take on what's next. What's the future of AI and fraud detection going to look like?
Well, I think we're on the verge of a whole new era in security, one where AI is going to be front and center. I
Yeah.
picture a future where these AI systems are constantly learning and adapting and evolving to stay one step ahead of the fraudsters,
Hmm.
and ultimately creating a safer and more secure online experience for everyone.
But like we talked about, it's not going to be some perfect utopia where AI just solves all the problems.
Right.
It's going to be a future where we got to stay alert and keep asking those tough questions about, ethics and responsibility.
Yeah,
And we need to work together to make sure AI is developed and used in a way that benefits all of humanity. We all have a part to play in shaping what that future is going to look like.
could agree more. The future of AI and fraud detection, it's a team effort, and we got to make sure we're using this powerful technology for the right reasons.
And on that note, we come to the end of our deep dive. We hope you found this exploration insightful and maybe even got you thinking a bit. Remember, this conversation about AI is just getting started. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged because this stuff is going to keep shaping our world in some pretty amazing ways.